Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Right Dishonourable, the podcast where myself and Jimmy, say hello, Jimmy.
Hello, Jimmy.
Witty. We like to mouth out about stuff that is happening in the world of current events, just like to bounce ideas around each other's heads. We're joined today by the lovely Ali Jardine, also known as Rogue Blue Jay on the interwebs. Hello, Ali.
Hello.
Hello, and I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's
Excellent, and welcome. It is early. It's still early. We are filming this on a crisp Sunday morning. But let's move on from information that the audience won't actually be interested in. We want to talk about today the recent election of Angela Merkel. So she has, with her party, the Christian Democrats, she's just won 311 seats in the Bundestag. She needed 316 to get a majority. She's just shy, and it looks like at the moment she could form a majority government with some smaller coalition partners, but it looks like she is going to be reaching across the aisle to her major centre-left counterparts to create a grand coalition, and this would be something similar to the Conservatives and Labour coming together in the name of stability. So, Ali, why do you think that this is such an alien concept for us? Why would we never be able to see a peacetime Labour and Conservative coalition?
That's a good question. I think it's probably something to do with how we view, it's something to do with maybe our national culture, about thinking if one person is right, then the other person has to be wrong, and politics is about argument rather than, and kind of debate rather than maybe like agreeing for the common good.
Compromising.
Yeah. Yes, right, exactly.
Such an alien concept for the British politicians, eh? Do you think there's some truth in that, Jimmy?
I don't know, because, well, I'm just trying to think that we currently have a coalition that, in many ways, ideologically is stranger than the Labour-Tory coalition could be, because, I mean, Ed Miliband, there's some argument about whether he's taking Labour back to its socialist roots at the moment, but when the 2010 general election was rolling around, I think it would be fair to say that the Lib Dems were further to the left, or at least more different to the Conservatives than Labour were. I think it would be fair to say. So maybe it isn't so weird for us, but people do have a fear of coalitions in this country. People tend to think that it produces weak governments, whereas in Germany they've had almost nothing but coalitions since the
So isn't something like Germany proof that coalitions work and that compromising government is possible?
You'd think so, because Germany is, of all the major European powers, is doing the best.
Yeah.
I think it would be fair to say.
I think it is fair to say.
Whether that is purely down to its electoral system or down to the fact that it always has coalitions, or it's obviously more
or just
complicated than
Angela.
that. I don't know, it's just Germany always seems to be doing well, doesn't it? Apart from the World War II thing, but
oh wow! So
like
we've been
British
filming
will
about
never
4
forget
minutes,
that,
not
ever.
even 4 minutes, and we've already brought up World War II. Fantastic. Always
Yeah,
high.
someone had to,
It was the elephant in the room.
Well, we've got that off of our shoulders now. Ali, you said that this was probably, we were talking earlier, and you said that this would probably lead to more stability in Europe rather than change. Do you think that that is a good thing? Do we want a stable Europe, or do we want Europe to be... Does it not need a rocket up its ass at the moment?
I mean, we definitely want a stable Europe, but the question is, like, can things get better? And I think that, it would be tough to argue that things can't get better in Europe.
That's always going to be true, though, isn't it? Things can always
Yeah, I guess
improve.
that's true. But I think things can get significantly better right now.
Is that with a grand coalition in our largest economy, or would we need a bit of a shake-up? Because a grand coalition, that's like uber stability. That's Slight German pun there. Whoops. That's like unprecedented. I can't really wrap my head around it. I think that it shows how much how much of a powerful person Angela Merkel is, and I think it shows the amount of faith that her country has in her. And she was so close to having an overall majority with her own party as well.
I think the interesting thing about Merkel, even within her own party, is that she seems almost, I don't know if it's entirely appropriate to compare her to Thatcher, but in the way that Thatcher was...
I thought you were going to say Hitler.
Oh dear.
I'm not going to be that inappropriate. But Thatcher, in some ways, was a sort of compromise because no other group within the Tories was powerful enough to support its own candidate, and there is a sense that Merkel is similar in that way, in that there's a lot of divides within her own party, but because no other group is strong enough, she's the one who's actually emerged.
Don't you think that's kind of like a microcosm for Europe as well?
What do you?
Well,
what do you mean by that?
she's the de facto leader of Europe. She represents not just Germany but Europe when she's abroad, more so than somebody like Francois Hollande or David Cameron ever could.
Yeah.
And do you think that that's because there is so much noise in Europe that maybe she is an individual and a politician that kind of can cut through the bullshit?
I think in part it's because she's of the three major powers in Europe are Britain, France and Germany, and she's the only one that has a stable kind of platform. But she's the only one who really has a proper mandate. Well, obviously Hollande was elected, but there's a lot more
elected in quotation marks.
Well, I don't want to compare him to Cameron, who obviously didn't get a majority, so has a far less stable mandate. But she's just won a third election with the most convincing amount of support that she could ever want. And actually, Hollande is having, it seems to me, a far harder time of leading his country than she is of leading hers.
Yeah.
So I think, in part, that's the reason she's the de facto leader of Europe, and partly it's because Germany is the most powerful country within Europe. So that's what I would say. Jazza, why do you think that we should care about what happens in German elections?
So I was watching an Andrew Marr documentary because I need a life, and he described Angela Merkel as a German politician who matters more to the British people than 95% of the politicians that we have in our parliament. And that's it's so true. And it's also the fact, I don't know what it is about her, but she just seems to, I fancy her a little bit. I'll be honest. I'd turn for Merkel. She just seems to be able to cut through all of the bullshit that Cameron says, and Francois Hollande doesn't seem to have a lot of power in his own country or legitimacy. Cameron has to pander to certain factions in his own party, and so that, I think, especially in Europe, he loses out to that. Whereas maybe it's because of the language barrier, I don't know, but we don't tend to see that as much with Merkel. She's also the biggest and most prominent representative of Europe abroad. Like, screw, no offense to Catherine Ashdown, but like she has a minuscule role compared to the kind of stuff that Angela Merkel is doing for Europe as a continent, you know?
I mean, Ali, you're probably a better measure of what people think than we are, because we run a political podcast, but do you keep abreast of what's happening in Europe or what's happening in Germany?
I mean, like, I think I'm fairly standard in that I'll notice when sort of the big things happen. So, I'd heard the name, which I'm not going to try and pronounce.
Which the name of
Angela Merkel.
Angela.
Yeah, Angela
Merkel.
Yeah, that name.
Oh wow, it's that bad.
Yep. It's not like you've been saying it 15 times.
No, not at all.
But what do you think of her then? Do you have a perception of her?
Do you
at
think
all?
it's important for normal people to have a perception of her, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely, what's happening in Germany, has the potential to affect the world, especially, or at least the rest of Europe. And so I think it is important. Whether... Yes.
We used to drink bottle gins and the whole world had to sing. Meet the trees and unsuch bar. We used to dance, we'll take a chance. I lost my mind to young romance. Yeah, I don't mind, I got it back. Half the time I'm waiting for a second chance.